Welcome to Live.Stock, the podcast of the Beef and Forage Center. And today I'm here with Dr. Katie Mason, our beef systems specialist. And we are going to have an interesting conversation today with Dr. Neal Schrick, head of the Animal Science Department, that is here with us again.
Thank you. Welcome.
Schrick, you have been here with us a few months ago when we were discussing the Beef and Forage Center as a center, right? You were
Correct.
one of the founders of the center 12 years ago. So here today, our discussion will be a little bit different, right? We want to go through this myth and falsehoods around agriculture, animal agriculture. I think that's the main goal for us today. And I want to start this podcast with a few facts, those the ones that we need to know to start this conversation today. The first one is by 2050, we'll need to feed 9 billion people in the world, right? The world population is multiplying more rapidly than the available food supply. We need to do something to get there. That's what we know right now. The other thing we know is that consumers have become more and more interested in knowing the origin of the products, right? They want to know about the quality, the history, where they were produced. And I think the main goal we have as researchers and extensionists working in animal science and plant science here is to be able to produce more food on less land. So those three things are the pillars of our conversation here. U.S. is still the fourth major beef exporters in the world as well. So along with India, Brazil, and Australia, we have the four countries that most produce food, especially meat, beef, for all over the world, right? So I think that's the main scenario I want us to start our conversation today.
Yeah, so as we're talking about those challenges and some of the things that people have suggested to try to solve those issues, one of the topics that people bring up is lab meat. It goes by a lot of different names, right? Cultured meat, clean meat, cultured protein, cell-based meat, but basically a meat tissue that's taken from a stem cell and grown in vitro, so grown in the lab. And they're being marketed and being promoted as a way to save the planet from climate change, and they're cleaner and they're better for us. So what is your take on whether lab-based meat will save the planet?
It will not save the planet. What it's doing is switching resources from a rural environment where livestock are being produced now into more in an urban factory for these bioreactors. The energy is probably going to be way more costly with the lab meat than out here raising cattle in a rural environment with our pastures that we have. They're typically not tillable, except people want to build houses on them now.
Right.
So again, it's just a transfer of cost. And when I say cost, I don't mean dollars per se, but from rural to urban, from pastures to factory. It's that switch. Now, in our lifetime, will we eat a lab-based product? Yes. I mean, if you think about the cell phone, when I had a cell phone in 1994, it was a bag phone. It was big, it was cumbersome. But now the technology is basically, we've got a little computer like your little phone there. And so as this continues, they'll get better. But the cost is going to be the same.
Mhm.
The impact on the environment is this switching from a rural environment to more of an urban environment.
Mhm.
So again, it's not saving the planet. It is this switching things from one site to another.
Mhm.
And so again, we'll have it. It's expensive. It's right now, but again, as they get better and the technology and the production, prices will go down and things of that sort. But it's not going to, people who think that this is going to save the planet are not thinking about this in terms of metric tons of beef produced. If the folks in Silicon Valley would start looking at the cost on a metric ton of beef,
Mhm.
like what we import or what we export,
Yeah.
either way, and then look at what it would take to make a metric ton of beef using these bioreactors and everything, and the amount of energy and workers driving their cars and all this to that, you're not seeing anything. You're just moving the cost from one to another.
Mm. Mhm.
Well, we also had a recent publication from Duke Molecular Physiology Institute as well, right? They were kind of testing and they compared 18 samples of a popular plant-based meat alternative to 18 grass-fed ground beef samples from a ranch in Idaho. And I thought that was really interesting because the analysis says that out of the 36 carefully cooked patties found there, 171 out of 190 metabolites that they measured there varied between what is beef and what is plant-based, right? So the component, the metabolics that they are finding there is different,
Not the same.
not the same. And they listed for us here that things, for example, that several of them are known to be important to human health, and they were found either exclusively or in greater quantities in beef, including creatine, spermine, cysteine, glucosamine. I have a list of them here. Omega-3, fat acid, DHA. These nutrients have potentially important physiological, anti-inflammatory, or immunomodulatory roles for us,
Right.
right? How can we compare apples to apples?
You're not comparing apples to apples. You're talking about two different products. So if you've got someone who is on a vegetarian or vegan lifestyle, then the plant-based meats are there. But for folks to go around and say that the plant-based is healthier is not true. And this is data from Duke University. This is not Texas A&M. This is not University of Tennessee. This is not Oklahoma State that's saying this. This is Duke University, who do not have an iron in the fire per se, that are finding these different metabolites and finding the value in beef. Real beef is very important for human health versus what I term the processed plant-based meats. And so again, to me, you're taking a very prime product, i.e. beef, and you're trying to compare it to a processed food. That'd be taking a T-bone steak and comparing against a hot dog. They're not the same. And one's a very processed food, one's a very true prime food there. So again, that's why I think you're seeing these differences in these products. And so, but recognize you do have a very small percentage of the population that is looking for a plant-based substitute. Some of them are associated with the tick bite, that they cannot eat meat any longer, and they still like a meat type product or taste, but they can't eat meat because of the tick bite and things of that sort. So they're looking for alternatives, and this is an alternative. But to come in and say, again, you're going to save the planet with plant-based, with all the soil that's going to be used, the tractor time, the plant time, the people time, because usually, you know, when you're talking about vegetables and things of that, very intensive versus you and I running 100 cows somewhere around and things of that sort. The labor intensity with these crops and everything is much more. So again, don't say you're going to save the planet or the world or whatever when you're using something that is not an animal product. No, you're just, again, switching or substituting one for the other. And so again, it drives me nuts when I hear people say it's so much healthier for you and everything. And I'm sitting there going, again, it depends on who you're talking to and who is listening. So again, a lot of the interest also is on animal welfare with the lab-based meats and the plant-based meats is animal welfare. You know, we don't have to, harvest animals and everything. And if we do the plant-based and everything, but again, if we're going to get rid of all consumption of meat, then I want to know who's going to go take care of all these animals. So that's a question I have for all the animal welfares. Are they going to go all put a cow in their backyard? So that's my question.
Take care of them.
Take care of them.
Yeah, so we have this conversation in my beef management class every year. I always do a taste panel and let the students try some different, conventional beef. They try grass-fed beef, and much to your chagrin, they try not lab-based, excuse me, plant-based beef alternatives. But it's really to give them an opportunity to be able to say they've tried it. They don't have to go, buy it to try it. We provide that experience for them, and really the conversation around it of, what does this actually mean? Is it a healthy alternative? Is it an environmentally friendly alternative? you know, the way that it's marketed really matters, and there needs to be food options, right? But the way that you actually sell that product matters, and that's kind of what you're getting at with this conversation. So you've alluded to the fact that it's probably not, you know, more environmentally friendly than beef production, since we're taking advantage of a natural system when we raise cattle, right? And so now we're changing it to more of an artificial type system to make that beef. So um going along with that, we also have to think about the cost to the consumer, right? And so is this a food that right now obviously it's not available at a low cost, but do you think that it's going to be a food that's available to populations of people that don't have a lot of money to spend on, you know, on meat?
Scalability, right?
Yeah.
How are you going to scale that?
Not in my lifetime.
Hmm.
Again, it will get better. Again, think of 1992 bag phone to 2024 iPhone. A lot of improvements, a lot of changes. There's a lot of work being done to figure out modeling systems to make this work more efficiently. But it's going to have a cost,
Hmm.
and it's going to have a high cost. And again, it's one of those that's going to use a lot of energy and things of that sort. And when I say energy, we're talking electricity to run these bioreactors 24/7 and things of that sort. I don't think people have really sat down and calculated it on, like I said earlier, a metric ton of beef.
Hmm.
You've got to do it on the same scale,
Hmm.
you know. And so if we want to look at some of the data from Israel, their 4-ounce hamburger, I believe, was selling for they estimated $125.
Hmm.
Now, currently. Now, will that lower? Yes. Will it get better price? Yes. But is it going to be something that a family that cannot afford groceries at the current market is going to be able to get into? Probably not.
Right.
Not I'm
Not soon,
61,
right.
not in my lifetime.
And that's what we talk about in our class too, is, you know, we're in a position where we're privileged to even be able to argue about whether we should have plant-based alternatives, right? And so when we think about the bigger picture of feeding the world, and there are people that, you know, just getting that protein on the table is important. And so yeah, this is a bigger conversation, right? And so not something that we see from a scalability standpoint just yet.
And from now to the next 25, 30 years, we still have another 2 billion people to feed, right?
Yes.
So
Mhm.
we are talking, hey, what we can do now,
Demand is still going to
maybe
go
now,
up.
but
Yeah.
we are talking about increasing the demand a lot for the next
Mhm.
20, 30 years.
But if you want to look at efficiency of a system, you know, I drive a Dodge truck. Okay. And, you know, if you think about pickups, they get anywhere from 8 to 12 to 15 to 17 and maybe 20 miles per gallon, full size pickup. Okay. And you think about, well, what that efficiency of gasoline. Think about the efficiency that we've done with beef production since the 1970s to now. The amount of beef that we can produce now with far fewer animals. So if you want to look at a program, agriculture, that has improved in efficiency, all you got to do is look at the beef industry. We've used genetics and animal health and reproduction and nutrition
And
to
forage
really-
management.
and forage management
The base of it all.
to again to make a very efficient system.
Sure.
Think about the amount of beef that we're producing now versus in the 70s.
I think that it has a lot to talk as well. I want to raise this point here, especially the young generations. I think they kind of grew up in a scenario that we have been battling towards all of this climate change discussion in the last 15, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to believe that several of these kids that are now discussing more deeply that the plant-based products are the ones that they still believe that the livestock is the one in charge, right? The livestock is the one is the guilty one in this process. Well, you were the ones that deforestate everything, that torn apart half of the earth. And I want to remember that we have here 40% of the global terrestrial area in grasslands, and it is part of the ecosystems worldwide. So it we we truly can produce really good beef with really good quality and take care of the environment.
our producers are some of the best carbon sequestration people there are in the world.
Mhm,
And we don't give them credit.
mhm.
You think of all the grass that I'm growing for hay out there that's taking that carbon out of the air and everything and putting it in the ground where it should be. And you think about our producers that are doing the same thing. And again, all people want to talk about is methane, methane, methane coming from the cows. But again, think how much we're putting into the soils, not only with our pastures, but also our forest land, our row crops. I mean, it is unbelievable what we're taking out. It's time agriculture starts getting a credit for that.
Mhm.
So along these lines, let's pinch another thing here. How about antibiotics in this conversation? Because we have been discussing here that we are not destroying the world that much, right? We learned how to grow, how to raise livestock in the last few years. You just mentioned about carbon sequestration. I think the other negative point that we have in this discussion is somebody who also points towards antibiotics.
Oh, yeah. Antibiotics always come front and center. And, I just took a tour of our new design team and contractors for the meat lab to a couple of meat facilities here in Tennessee and had the veterinarian, the meat inspector on site who was doing KISS tests. And basically they're slicing the kidney and checking for antibiotics. And it's a very sensitive test, very rapid test and things of that sort. And I mean, if this animal pops for antibiotics, they're done. I mean, that carcass goes away, it's condemned. It's there. And if it happens again, your name goes on a list that I can take you. It's a public website. We can go look at that list and look at who's on that list. You don't want your name on that list. Okay. No one's going to be wanting to buy cattle from someone with that name on that list. So our producers are very, very good. I think the last time that I heard from Dr. Strickland, the number one antibiotic residue that's in meat that they find in Tennessee is primarily Banamine, which is liquid aspirin. So animals got her ears down, give her a shot of Banamine. She's lipping, give her a shot of Banamine. And that's probably the one that we don't pay attention enough to. The other ones were very, very good on withdrawal times and stuff like that. But let me tell you how sensitive these tests are. That's the thing. You got to realize how sensitive these tests are. And I'm going to use the dairy industry as an example. So at our dairy that we had at Middle Tennessee Research and Education Center in Spring Hill, we used to run about 160 dairy cows that we would milk. And the cows were used on a lot of mastitis studies, research studies, and things of that, trying to find vaccines or corrections for this years ago. And this was years ago. The tests have even got better. This was years ago. And they had a cow that came through, and the cows that had been treated with antibiotics were marked. They had little leg bands on each leg. But one of the milkers missed one cow that had been treated in 1/4, not all 4 quarters, 1/4. And the cow got milked, and that milk got put in the bulk tank. Big old 5,000 gallon bulk tank. Okay, big tank. The milk truck that picks this milk up and delivered it to Mayfield came by, and he takes an A sample and a B sample, just like you do at the Olympics. Take an A sample and B sample, puts down M-Trek, A sample, M-Trek, B sample, puts it in his truck, goes around and picks up from the other dairies. This is a 60,000 pound truck, picks up all this milk at all these other dairies. Okay. Then goes all the way to Athens, goes into Mayfield, guy jumps on the top of the tank, opens up, takes a sample out of that tank, the entire tank that has our sample plus 4 or 5 other dairies samples in there. Goes in there, it pops positive. Now, this cow got milked one time, probably made 30, 40 pounds of milk, maybe. One time. Got put in that tank, mixed with all the other cows,
Another 60.
got mixed with all those other dairies. It popped. They go back and they take the A sample from each farm that they picked up milk that morning, ran it. Guess what? Ours popped. Guess who paid for that tank of milk? Us, because it got dumped. And so that's how sensitive. I mean, very, very little. And so again, when folks are worried about antibiotics in their meats and milk and stuff like that, our farmers are very, very good, and they do not want to get put on that list and named and things of that sort. And so they're really gonna do their due diligence. So
And don't pay the bill out of the whole truck, right?
that's right. And don't buy the entire truck.
Mhm. Yeah, so kind of going along with that on the, transitioning from talking about antibiotics over to steroid use and growth implants, I think this probably is a reason that we see that a lot of producers don't adopt the technology of using growth implants because of that connotation of meat having steroids in it. So, what do you think is the largest hindrance of using technologies, whether it's implants or other precision technology in beef production?
There's two things. So first, all meat has steroids. Very, very little. So if you think about a 3 or 4 ounce piece of meat from a non-implanted steer has 2 nanograms, and a nanogram is 0.000000000. Okay, so all the way backwards this way, and that's 2 nanograms, and an implanted steer has 3 nanograms, whereas uh, soy milk or whatever has 500,000
Hmm.
nanograms.
Hmm.
So again, pick your battles. This is a battle that's not there. Now, it has helped immensely with efficiency of production. And so one of the things that makes us able to have affordable food is improving our efficiency. So this is a way you can improve efficiency, is using growth implants and things of that sort. Now, adopting precision. Again, what I've mentioned to our precision folks over and over and over is we keep trying to go and push precision on a 20 cow producer or 25 cow producer. If you want to get precision adopted, go find those row crop guys that are already using GPS tractors to
Mhm.
plant and spray and seed and everything else, who also run cattle,
Hmm.
because they're already using this precision agriculture on their row crop side, and get them to start using it in their cattle production. And you'll see it, what I call Reaganomics, trickle down to the ones below that will see in the future that, hey, my little 25 cow herd, we can't do this and this, but I can use this technology.
Hmm.
Now, right now, one of the biggest technologies I'd love our producers to be able to use, which could be classified as precision, is just put an ear tag in their ear.
Right.
And so, or castrate the bull calves they're not going to keep and things of that sort.
Take a hay sample. That's
Take-
my favorite one.
take a hay
Balance
sample.
ration.
Oil sample, weight and animal, right? No
Bruno,
defects at least.
Bruno's going to pick on me on soil sampling. And so again, soil sampling, forage test, these, people may not consider those precision, but they are, because they allow me to be more efficient in my fertilizer
Mhm.
when I do my soil tests. If I do my forage testing, it makes me more manageable in terms of my nutrition over the winter, summer, whenever.
Mhm.
And so again, they may not be precision, but they are precision.
The thing I love the most about this livestock podcast is we are all circling back to the base of the system,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Regardless of what we're discussing here, at the end of this discussion, we are always talking about what can we do to do it right?
That's right.
What can we do to be more efficient? What can we do to provide healthier food, right? What can we do to keep our farmers in their farm doing the best that what they know what to do
Mhm.
and doing the way they have been doing, but using the new tools we have, right?
Mhm.
Getting them updated and be aware of the new technology. And on the other hand, I think we just had a great conversation here, Schrick, about this lab grown meat and steroids and anabolics and how can we I think we need to talk more efficiently with the population. We need to, I think that's UT does it well in our courses here at University of Tennessee, right? We that's kind of thing we discuss with our students here. You gotta go out, you gotta grab your degree from here, but you need to go there and share it, right? And bring the knowledge out of the University of Tennessee as well.
Well, this weekend I went, my favorite thing to do is pick up donuts. Favorite place. I pick up donuts, cinnamon twist, love them. You can tell. And And so, but while I'm there, the person that owns the store is from Texas, and he runs cattle, and we're talking about cattle and things of that sort. And there was another person listening who was kind of upset that we were talking about beef cattle and how cruel that is, and things of that sort. And it's one of those things that we then talked to her. Have you been to a farm? Never been. So how do you know it's cruel? Well, that's what I read. Well, have you been there? Have you actually seen one? And that's the thing that we need to do is, we do a great job of touring our beef producers to go around and see other farms. It may be time to take all our dietitians like the Tennessee Beef Industry
Yeah.
Council does.
Yep.
And take them out to see the farms and things of that sort and get that exposure there. Katie just helped this weekend feeding the UT football team.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's take those football players who everyone wants their autographs and take them to Food City or Kroger or wherever by the meat counter talking about how beef has made their body stronger,
Right.
better, things of that sort.
Right.
That's what we need to do. And so we need to get the word out. We need to tell a story. And when someone comes up and says, this isn't right, this is not how it's done, have you been there? No. Then let's go. Let's go see one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why, I love to take my students on a field trip in beef management. These are animal science students. They're senior level, and a lot of them still haven't been on a farm. And so, just because of their background, I didn't grow up on a farm, but luckily I ended up in agriculture. So taking students and letting them see and have those experiences is really important. And so, kind of leading into that and looking into the future, we're going to have a meat lab soon, or a protein innovation center soon, hopefully in the next couple of years. Talk a little bit about the progress of that and what that's going to do for our program.
Well, it was, we had the state that provided 12.5 million. And then the university, including UTK and UTIA, put in another 2.5 million. So we have 15 million that we're going to build a facility. It's 15,000 square feet, be a new meat lab. Ours got tore down in 2010, 2009. And so we've not had a meat lab, which to me, being a meats person, back in my day, working at the lab in Oklahoma State and everything, I want a meat lab. How better to teach kids and everything. And so it's been something I've worked on since 2011 when I became department head. And luckily we got the funds. And so we're in the process. We have a design team already going. We already have contractors hired. Like I mentioned earlier, we took them on a tour of Anderson Meats and also D&D Meats, John Donaldson's group, and up there. So they visited with Steve Anderson on his facility, do's and don'ts, and they visited with John Donaldson and his sons on do's and don'ts for their facilities. And it was really eye-opening, I believe, for these guys, because a lot of them had not even been to one.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them that went, I'd actually judged his daughter at Roundup in vet science, and it was clueless.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's living in Powell, and they see cows across the fence, but that's it.
Right.
And to see the process, how they're handled humanely and things of that sort. It's not like the videos. And so it's done, to me, like it should be done.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, they got to see the flow, how it went through the meat lab. Ours, the plan is it's going to be done by March of 2027.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because that's a very important date for me, and I want it done by then. And so again, we're making good progress. We've got drawings. We're still working through some little details, but it will handle, classes of 20 to 30 kids. It also has an extension component in it.
Mm-hmm.
The faculty member that we're hiring that will be one of them that's out there a good bit is a 70% extension, 30% teaching appointment. So it'll be built out at Blunt Farm. So again, it's a nice facility. It'll be a nice facility. It will fit in with the environment that's out there. It's not going to be brick and mortar type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's one that our goal is to bring in the public as we do and show them,
Mhm.
you know, we want to make this part of the UT smoking school
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and things of that sort. So this is just something that we're going to work with downstream. And it's got a classroom that will hold about 60 folks. It's got a rail, so we'll be able to bring
Excellent.
carcasses, and it will do cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, and poultry.
Mhm.
And so the poultry is a separate unit over to the side. It will be a USDA inspected facility. And so again, it will be one of those that I think our students will learn a lot from farm to fork,
Mhm.
as you can say, because we're going to do a lot of processing, smoking, and things of that sort too.
Sure.
That's excellent. I think that's exactly what we need, right? To be able to go from the farm to the public and show them and prepare our students to be ready with all of the answers.
Mhm.
Schrick, again, it was a pleasure to have you here for the second time in our Live.Stock. I hope you guys have been enjoying our conversation here and be able to join us next month. We will be here again in another month with a new Live.Stock podcast. Good to see you all.